Let's throw this open for a wider conversation on what's the road ahead for Israel's war on Hamas. How's the world viewing this? Yigal Nissel is Chief Operations Officer at Combat Anti-Semitism, joins me on the broadcast. Sushant Sareen is Senior Fellow at the Observer Research Foundation. Also with me is Ambassador Prabhu Dayal. He's served extensively across the region. And I want to begin by asking you, Yigal Nissel, how do you view the US President's statement? The India, Middle East, Europe Economic Corridor was signed only on the 9th and 10th of September in New Delhi. These operations, we've been told in Israel, were planned for about a year, if not more. But was the signing of that agreement the trigger for this terror attack?
So first of all, thank you for having me. Without a doubt, it has a direct connection to the massacre on the 7th of October by the terror ISIS organization Hamas. And we all need to understand is that Hamas is a puppet organization from Iran. And as your reporter has said before, that Iran doesn't want to lose their power in the Middle East, the evil power of the Middle East. And when President Biden, with Saudi Arabia, together with India and the G20, announced this historical announcement for economy in the world, for people to go forward, for a future to our children, the evil country, Iran, and of course, together with the terror organization Hamas, and of course, Hezbollah in Lebanon, they could not accept it.
Okay.
And so, as the president has said, I think for sure, there's a direct connection between the attack itself and the announcement.
So you see a direct connection. Sushant Sareen, an agreement that was signed on the 9th and 10th of September, training that, according to Israel, went on for a year plus. But in case Israel does commit ground troops into Gaza and the death toll, which has crossed 7,000 already in Gaza, mounts, will Hamas or Iran have succeeded in throwing a spanner in the works? Will Saudi Arabia also get involved in that normalization of ties between Israel and Saudi Arabia? Will that no longer happen in your appreciation?
Gaurav, first and foremost, I think the number of 7,000 is a little far-fetched. We have no evidence that it is indeed 7,000. We've seen dead bodies make phone calls also in images coming out of the Bollywood, as it's called. So I'll be careful on the numbers. But yes, I think there is a lot of devastation taking place in Gaza. And the way the narratives are being built around the Islamic world, there will be a lot of pressure on Islamic governments or Arab governments around the world to, take a much more forthright position on this conflict. Many of the Arab countries, UAE, Saudi Arabia, Egypt, even Jordan for that matter, have taken a pretty nuanced kind of a stand so far. They are not going ballistic as they would have 10, 15, 20 years back. And clearly, they are now operating in a new world and they're looking at a new world. There are other countries which, however, have a stake in the system to demolish whatever new was being built. So there is going to be that problem. And the more the war prolongs and more the casualties happen, that pressure will continue to grow. And I think that is going to be a trick. How do you manage the public narratives? How do you manage that war of narratives? I think that will be very critical in ensuring that many of the countries which are hoping that this is swift, quick, and you clean it up and then you go back to some kind of a peace process. Okay. Although I think that's also not going to be very easy, and they will go back to doing the business as usual. So I think for now it is a pause. But if this war elongates, if war widens, then I don't know, then all bets are off.
Ambassador Dayal, it's already 20 days. World opinion, is it changing with those images coming out of the Palestinian-held, the Palestinian Gaza territory, the body bags, the quest for food, water, fuel, which Israel says no fuel because that fuel actually sends rockets into Israel. How do you see this pan out? Is Israel losing global support, or America, England, they will continue to stand strongly with Israel in the days and weeks ahead?
No, I don't think that Israel is losing support from the countries which were supporting it initially. In fact, global opinion is becoming more polarized. It was already polarized due to the Russia-Ukraine war, and this process of polarization has accentuated on account of the Hamas-Israel war. Now, let me categorically state that there are a number of countries which feel very, very strongly about the Hamas terrorist attack on Israel. A terrorist attack cannot be condoned in any manner whatsoever. However, there are countries which were able to give it a sort of a religious twist and make it an Islam versus Judaism contest. Well, there are a few takers.
Okay.
This narrative surely has been promoted by certain interested parties, the Hamas itself, Iran, even countries like Qatar. But there is no doubt that the growing integration of Israel into this region is something that has begun to worry countries like Iran, countries like Qatar, and of course, the opponents of Israel wherever they are. And that is why when President Biden said that the India, Middle East, Europe economic corridor, the announcement of it, could have triggered it off. I think he may be right, because the connection between India and Europe will pass through 4 Middle Eastern countries: UAE, Saudi Arabia, Jordan, and Israel. Out of these, UAE and Jordan already have diplomatic relations with Israel. Saudi Arabia is in the process of having talks and could normalize relations.
Yigal Nessil, has the United States actually asked Israel to press the pause button on the aerial bombing and on ground troops going into the Gaza Strip till the US has more THAAD missile defense systems and Patriot missile defense systems in the area? Is there an apprehension this battle could widen and Israel could use other proxies even to target the US like it already is in Syria and in Iraq?
So without a doubt, the United States of America is our strongest allies, and we of course see Biden and his government and the army as our very close advisors, and we listen to them. But let me just make it clear that they don't tell us what to do. Friends doesn't tell to other friends what to do. They give us advice. And of course, we listen to some of it, but in the end, this is our country, Israel. In the end, we need to defend this country. And without a doubt, when President Biden is advising us, we of course listen to this. We can tell you that Prime Minister Netanyahu and his government is looking for many, many aspects how to make sure that this war will end by Hamas will be destroyed. Point. This is what we need. We need Hamas to be destroyed, not only in Israel, also their money resources, also the leaders from living in different places in the world. We need to make sure for our children that Hamas will not exist anymore.
No,
and
but
that's why
how do you identify? Will you just take down leaders? Will you take down fighters? And how do you know who's a fighter and who's a Palestinian civilian? With the death toll mounting, aren't you increasingly coming under pressure with even allies now saying, press the pause button, let relief supplies go in?
So first of all, we are the only democracy in the Middle East, and we have one of the most moral armies in the world. Every attack that we do in Gaza, it's a defense attack, and we make sure we notify each building before to tell the residents to leave, and we also making sure that they're moving from one place to another to a safe place to make sure that the civilians will be separate than the terrorists. But I want to make sure one thing that everybody will understand, and I know that our friends in India understand that as well. We are in a war. This is about Israel's future. And in a war, sometimes, unfortunately, innocent people lose their life. But I want to make sure that everybody understands that this is not because of Israel. This is because Hamas take them as hostage against us.
Sushant Sareen, that's the point Israel repeatedly makes. If Hamas has been elected by the people of Gaza Strip, in whatever manner that election was had taken place, Hamas is responsible for the people of Gaza Strip. If Hamas returns the hostages, the bombing may stop. Is that an argument that's acceptable?
No, I don't think even if the Hamas was to return the hostages, the bombing would stop entirely, or the objectives of the state of Israel would change insofar as Hamas is concerned, at least insofar as Gaza is concerned. Maybe they'll keep hunting down the Hamas guys if they were to run away from Gaza and go into some other place and take refuge in some other country. But I think Israel simply cannot afford to let Hamas have a presence in Gaza anymore. So that objective is not going to change. Yes, it is possible that there could be some kind of a pause, for example, if the hostages are going to be released. And I think that's going to be a very important negotiating point. But I also would think, Gaurav, you've been there, you've seen what Hamas did, the savagery and the barbarism of Hamas. After that, I'm not entirely convinced if the hostages, keeping the hostages is going to stop the Israeli attack on Hamas. I don't think that's a negotiating tactic or a negotiating tool that Hamas can take very far. I don't think it's going to stop the Israeli juggernaut.
At the last 30 seconds on this part of the broadcast, Ambassador Dayal, in your appreciation, will Israel commit ground forces, or will Israel continue with these airstrikes and artillery strikes till the time the hostages are released? And many could be in tunnels. And are these bombs penetrating those tunnels, which may be 100 feet deep?
Well, Israel will certainly continue the aerial strikes. But please recall, Netanyahu pledged that he would end Hamas, that he would destroy Hamas. So after he feels that the aerial strikes have done their job, certainly ground forces are likely to go ahead.